Hello and welcome to The Arise interview, where we take time to reflect on the big stories from the news and on the fortunes and affairs of the world in an hour of conversation with commentators, analysts and thought leaders. I'm Charles Anyegolu. Coming up in the next 60 minutes, in the hands of God, the world says goodbye to the eternal Diego Maradona as more people share their memories of the Argentinian football superstar, and hundreds of thousands file past his body in a setting fit for a sporting deity, the presidential palace in Buenos Aires. We're joined by one of Nigeria's great international football stars to remember a player recognized by millions as a football genius. And later, according to a new temporary travel rule imposed by the US President Donald Trump as he prepares to leave office, citizens of 15 African countries will have to post bonds of up to $15,000 to visit the United States. Details of the new rule were released this week and will come into effect on December the 24th. So what's behind this move? We'll speak to a US immigration law expert and member of the Federal District Court of New Jersey. Coming up. From a childhood of poverty in a Buenos Aires shantytown to international football stardom, including leading Argentina's national football squad to World Cup glory, Diego Maradona lived the footballer's dream. Now, though, one of the game's legendary players has died after suffering a heart attack aged 60. Argentina has declared 3 days of national mourning for arguably its most famous son, with President Alberto Fernandez declaring him the greatest of them all. Thousands have been streaming through the presidential palace in the Argentine capital, Buenos Aires, to pay their final respects to the football legend. They've wrapped his body in the Argentine flag in a hero's farewell to a national and international icon.
He was the greatest. We will keep that. The farewell at the Bombonera with Boca champions, that was it. I don't think we thought it would be the last time he stepped onto the Bombonera. And well, God needed him more than we did.
I
don't know about everyone, but for me, Argentine soccer has just died. There's nothing left beyond what he is as a person. Maradona gave us so many joys, so much happiness. It is a great loss for the world football.
Remembering Maradona there. Well, among the football greats, past and present, who've been paying tribute to the eternal Diego Maradona is the British Nigerian former Wimbledon star, Ambassador John Fashanu, and he joins me now in the studio. Good to see you, Fash.
Thank you, Charles.
Thank you very much indeed for coming in. And of course, as a football legend yourself, I take it this is quite personal.
I think for every single footballer who's kicked a ball, it's personal. I don't think there can be anything as bad as picking up the phone and hearing that Diego has passed away. It was a shock. It really was a shock. And not just for me, but for millions of us around the world.
And of course, as you said, a moment of great sadness. I mean, not just in Maradona's home country of Argentina, but around the world, and particularly in the international football community of which you are a part.
Yes. You know, I can consider myself very lucky to have played against him twice. And I can tell you the honest truth, I've never, and I don't think up to date now, that I've seen a player like him. Yes, we have wonderful players like the great Pelé, who's still going strong at 80 and above, but Maradona, he was something else.
He was in a class of his own.
Charles, he was in a class of his
Yeah.
own. That you took the words out of my mouth. When you saw Maradona, when you saw him come onto the pitch, he just took over. That was it. You thought that you were actually one of the spectators in the stands watching. You didn't realize you were playing against him.
In other words, you wanted to stop playing and just look at it.
He was amazing.
Yeah.
And he brought life to the game. And you know, we've got the Lionel Mercies, we've got other players here, but they're not the same as Diego Maradona.
Somebody said that he did on the pitch what Michael Jackson did on the stage.
You've just said it. That's it. That's exactly what he did. And there's only one Michael Jackson, and there can only be ever one Michael Jackson. That's exactly the same. Diego Maradona lives on because we're still globally, everybody, everywhere, as I'm even driving here, is talking about what's going on, and that won't stop because he was an amazing man. But, Charles, I'm not going to tell you he was an enigma. He was a puzzle. So there was another side as well, but the good side of him was 100% wonderful.
Well, we'll try and get to that other side before we finish this lovely chat that we're having with you. But of course, you yourself are a very well-known football star. I mean, I remember as a slightly younger man in England, I mean, you were always in the newspapers,
yes.
particularly the tabloids.
Not always for the good reasons,
yeah,
Charles.
But you were always, so you yourself yes. were a legend. So, I mean, in a competitive sport such as football,
yes.
Diego Maradona must really have topped the charts for other competing football yes. stars to talk about him so, fervently as you are.
Well, Charles, I'm competing against the likes of Maradona.
Absolutely.
I might be competing, but I'm not getting close to him. But I can say myself, I didn't do badly, but he takes
you did
it
very
off.
well.
Yeah, he takes the limit because just some of the actual skills he had on the ball were amazing. We're not talking about, of course, the goal he scored with his hand against England. I was actually there, the hand of God. We know about that, of course. But just the person, the persona, the character he had, I can't explain it. Sometimes when you get out onto a pitch and you're expecting, maybe you're playing against Liverpool or Manchester United, Barcelona, and there's one particularly excellent player, you want to pay homage to him. You want to actually watch some of the skills he does rather than play the game. Maradona was that type of person.
Was there a lot of envy on the pitch?
Well, if you want me to tell you the truth, there's always envy when you see a player like Maradona. Yeah. Right the way through to the changing room there was envy because, of course, we couldn't do what he did. We just couldn't. And I assure you, Charles, I've tried it many times and I can't do it. So what is it that makes him so wonderfully brilliant, coming from abject poverty, as most of the footballers, the really good footballers, do and did?
Well, you're in a better position to tell us because you are a football legend yourself. What do you think made him a trademark and an icon in the footballing world, in which, I mean, there were so many talented people such as yourself? What set him apart?
Charles, if I could find that antidote, I would assure you I would drink it straight away.
The elixir of life,
I just don't know. I mean, he came from, like we all did, poverty. No mother, no father, the same story. Our stories are very similar all around. But he had it. That left foot of Maradona's was something else. Is it something that God gives you? Well, maybe. But because there's no other way, I can't tell you, Charles, that Maradona did more training sessions than I did, or from Pelé. From God, he just had what it took. And it was amazing. He could take on 5 players.
Yes.
5 players, and we're all trying to actually kick him because we can't tackle him fairly because we can't get the ball. And we're actually trying to kick him and he can still go past us all.
They called it Quicksilver feet.
Well, I don't know. I never wanted to hear what it was called because I was on the other side.
But you talked about going against him on the pitch twice. Tell us about those games.
The only thing you want to do, I was playing a friendly for England, played for England, and we played against Argentina, and the only name that came to my mind, was Maradona. I'm number 9. I don't play in midfield.
He was number 10.
He was number 10. He's the midfield captain, the general, the chief in the middle. And my objective, as soon as I saw that, was, whoa, I've got to get hold of this guy. Could never even get near him.
So here you were, part of England.
Yes.
I mean, England militarily had trounced Argentina in the Falklands.
Yes.
Malvinas, as they
That's
called
right.
it in Argentina. But of course, the Argentinians always successively beating England on the pitch.
Well, I'm not sure I can say that, Charles.
And that was a much more populist
yes,
thing, wasn't it? I mean,
yes, it was. To be honest, it was.
Yeah.
And I don't think that we could compare. I mean, when you're in the changing room, the only name that you hear of is from everybody is Maradona. Maradona. I mean, you've got 11 players all claim to be marking Diego Maradona. It doesn't work.
And of course, as you hinted, he was also a hugely colourful character, wasn't he? And
yes.
if anything, a people's champion, as so many
Yes.
people have made clear around the world.
Yes.
So it wasn't just the admiration from people
Yes.
like yourself,
Yes.
but just ordinary
Yes.
people.
I mean, Charles, he was very charismatic. What a charismatic person. He's the person that you meet on the street and he'll keep you there for 4 hours and buy you a cup of tea.
Well, I suppose you are that kind of person as
Well,
well.
yeah, I
Very
like to
sort
think
of
so.
ebullient.
Yes,
you know.
yes, that's a lovely word. And he emphasized exactly what you're thinking. When you're playing football, you're seeing somebody who will put the ball through your legs. We used to call that nutmegs. That's the last thing you can do to a footballer. But he would get away with that time and time again, and he'll come around and talk to you as you're going into the changing room. What a guy.
And talking about going into the changing room, I mean, you were not in the same locker room with
No,
him,
no.
I presume, but you knew a lot of people who were in the locker room
Yes.
with him. And I've
Yes.
heard it said that he was an extremely generous man, which is what you're
Oh,
saying now,
yeah.
who looked out for all his colleagues, and that is
Yes.
what you're confirming.
Yes.
That's what you've heard about.
Yes.
And experience.
That's not even what we've heard. That's what we know.
Yes.
Because there have been times when I've got to be honest. We were looking for things, and he would go, "Oh, you want to buy me this? Out here." He'll give you something, a few dollars to buy you whatever. But his idea of a few dollars could be $10,000 or $20,000. It was nice. I mean, football is a very lavish, very wealthy game, so we were all
Yeah, you
very
make me
wealthy
jealous.
anyway.
You guys made a lot of
Yes,
money.
I know, Charles. Yeah, but he was that. He was everything. When you look at him on the pitch, he was charismatic. He would tell jokes. He would be talking to everybody, even the opposition goalkeeper, etc., etc. And he's going to be sadly, sadly missed, Charles.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, on the pitch, what a player. Every moment he was on the field was a wow moment.
Yeah, that's the truth.
We'll talk about the other side of him that you hinted at when we come back, but do stay with us, John. It's absolutely brilliant talking with you. You're watching the Arise interview. Plenty more still ahead as the world mourns the death of the amazing football talent Diego Maradona. Stay with us. Welcome back to the Arise interview. I'm Charles Aniegolo. The body of the Argentine football legend Diego Maradona has been lying in state in the presidential palace in Buenos Aires, where fans have been paying their final respects. It's a hero's farewell for Maradona, a chance for millions to say goodbye to a national and international icon. Lying in state is a mark of just how loved he was, and it's an honor afforded to few famous names in Argentina. The government says it expects more than 1 million people to file past the superstar's coffin in the next few days. The country's been, of course, hit hard by the coronavirus, but Argentinians aren't skipping the opportunity to say goodbye to one of the greatest footballers of all time, and authorities are doing what they can to accommodate everyone safely. And with me in the studio, one of football's greats, the British Nigerian former Wimbledon star, Ambassador John Fashanu. Thank you for staying with us. And it's interesting that looking at the pictures of those filing past his coffin in tribute that we just saw, many of them look really young and probably weren't even born when Maradona was in his heyday. I guess that just shows how his legend has survived, and obviously will survive even longer now that he's passed on.
I think that Diego Maradona is a name that you're going to live with and die with, even all of us. As you've rightly said, Charles, most of those people I don't think have even seen him play. But because of the legacy which he left, and because we've got television everywhere and we've got phones which are recording and showing everything, it's very difficult to say that you might not have seen him play live, but you've seen him in a recording.
Absolutely.
Any single television show where there's anything to do with football, you'll see Maradona doing one of his free kicks.
Yeah, it's a bit like Pelé.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's
there's
it.
no way you wouldn't have come across if you're a football fan,
Yes. Yeah.
or even just a television
That's
watcher,
it.
really.
Yes.
You're bound to have come across him.
Yes.
But he had a rebellious streak that he had as a player, which was what made him so attractive to many. Rebellious in the way that he played football.
Yes.
Do you think it perhaps had difficult consequences for his own life? I mean, if you look at the drug addiction and other problems that he had, that tackled him, even if you couldn't get him when he was playing on the field.
Yes. I think there were certainly challenges which wouldn't go away. I think, Charles, that's the other side of
The
Diego
dark side.
Maradona, which, because of course, rest his soul rest in peace. We're not going to go into that too much, but at the same time, that was a challenge, because this is possibly why he's ended up dying at 60.
Absolutely.
It wasn't quite so nice when we were all hearing about the drug addiction. And of course, it wasn't quite the right thing for the millions of people who worshipped and loved Diego Maradona. So, we were under the impression that you'll keep being caught taking illegal drugs.
Cocaine, to be precise. He took a lot of cocaine
I didn't want
and
to
a lot
say
of
it.
alcohol.
Well, certainly. It did make us frown a little bit. I must say, towards the end, the stories with Diego were not quite so good. And of course, being in the game for 35 years, you tend to hear all of the stories.
The lurid stuff.
Yes, the real thing. We can dress it over and dust it down and make
But it was
look
there.
good. But it was there.
And I mean, for somebody, you know this better than the rest of us. I mean, you're a very famous footballer. Is there a lot of pressure to move in that direction when you are on that sort of level? I mean, or is it more of a personality thing? I mean, it's an individual thing, beyond the fact that you're famous and then you're under a lot of pressure, basically.
Charles, let me be very sincere and very honest. Being a celebrity, being a football star, the pressure for drugs, alcohol, these things is amazing. I always have to, when we're talking to the young children coming up, the 18, 19s, we always have to warn them and tell them, look, it's your best friend who's going to give you the cocaine. Stay away from these situations, because so many footballers who have vast amounts of money, basic salary of a footballer in Europe then £7,000 or £8,000 every month. That's $10,000. Well, what do you do with $10,000? Even myself, I can remember putting bags of cash into my cooker because I didn't know where to put it. I had so much money. And of course, when you have that sort of affluence and that sort of money, Charles, you're going to look for the wrong things. Some of us are lucky. There's many times those situations I thought about going down that road, but I said, no, I'm not going to. Unfortunately, Diego went down that road and he couldn't stop. And all his friends are the ones who are supplying him. So where do you go? It's very difficult to get away from that situation. Very difficult.
Is it I mean, trying to understand the psychology of it. I mean, you get to a point of fame and then you're like, well, what else can I do? I've experienced adulation. Lots of people, if I wanted, women or whatever, they were all there. What else can I do to take myself, a little bit higher? And the next alternative is experimenting with sort of chemicals, basically, and drugs.
Charles, you've just said exactly it. And I assure you, it is the hardest thing when you have succeeded and you have this wonderful thing called success and you have this wonderful thing called money. What else do you want? You want illegal things, you want illicit things, you want things that you shouldn't really go for. And especially as most of us have come from very, very poor backgrounds, abject poverty. Suddenly we're millionaires. But at the age of 23, I had £1 million in my bank. What do I do with it? I couldn't even write.
Yes, absolutely.
So what do I do with it? You spend it on women, you spend it on drugs, you spend it on drink, unless I just didn't like the taste. Otherwise, I'm not saying that I was better than anybody.
Right.
I just didn't like the taste, so I didn't go that way. But many people have gone that way.
Well, I've got to say, we're very glad that you didn't go that way,
Thank you,
John.
yes, me
And
too.
you've been a tremendous asset to the Nigerian football and the sporting African world, really, and internationally. I mean, you've been in Kano doing what you do, which is to try and find talented young Nigerians. and sending them overseas
Yes.
to become sporting stars. Tell us
Well,
about
that's it,
that.
Charles. This is a wonderful project, and it's called Find a Player, Change a Life. Kanu is the home of soccer as far as the white man is concerned. Everybody looks for the players who are in the north. So we have a lovely project which will start the second week in January, where we're looking for over 6,000 or 7,000 footballers. We have 15 scouts coming from abroad to look for the best footballers, Charles, and take them abroad and give them a better life. Because they're there in abundance.
Absolutely.
And they just don't have the connections. So Kanu, we're going to be there in January, the first week of January, yes.
Well, do come back and tell us about
Oh,
that.
I
But I mean, just returning to Maradona. So on the one hand, a magnificent player, but on the other, would you agree with those who say he was a disastrous example and role model for young people in Argentina and elsewhere because of his drug use? So a rather conflicting and conflicted situation. And I say this because of the fact that you're working with a lot of young people today.
Yes, well, Charles, you see, he's not the person that I would look to emulate, even for the youths, the children. But for myself as a footballer, he was wonderful, he was a magician. So, you know, I won't go quite as far because this is a time to look at the good side of Maradona, the good he brought. Maybe in a couple of years, I'll come back on the show and tell you some other things, which might. But for actually having somebody in there as a role model, Charles, possibly he wasn't the one off the pitch I would have selected as a role model. But on the pitch, you just be like Maradona.
And with a minute left to go, watching him and his team, Argentina, at that World Cup in 1986, it felt almost like he took the World Cup title single-handedly.
Oh,
didn't he?
definitely, yes. If there was anybody who didn't cry, then there's something wrong. I was crying because it was just amazing. You couldn't stop him. You just could not stop Diego Maradona. You couldn't do it.
John, you're an absolute star.
Thank you,
And
Charles.
thank you for sharing some very wonderful moments that
Yes.
you had with Maradona, as well as that you know of about him. John Fashanu, of course, the British Nigerian former Wimbledon star and one of football's true greats. You're watching the Arise interview. Plenty more still ahead, including a new travel rule imposed on 15 African countries by the US President Donald Trump as he prepares to leave office. We'll find out what's behind this move. Stay with us.